You take your car to the dealership for a routine service. Nothing seems urgent. Nothing feels dangerous. Just a sensor, a control module, maybe a software update. The kind of things you don't question. The bill comes back at $1,200. You hesitate for a second, then you pay it. You drive home. And the story ends there. Or at least, that's what you think. Because that repair wasn't random, it wasn't bad timing, and it definitely wasn't just about fixing your car. Car repair is not a problem manufacturers tolerate. It is a designed outcome. A carefully built system that turns inconvenience into profit. Not because parts are expensive to make, but because the system ensures that when something breaks, there is only one practical place to go. And once you understand that, you realize the most profitable part of the automotive business was never the car itself. It was everything that came after. The question is not whether car repairs are profitable. The question is why they have become so quietly, so consistently, and so structurally embedded into the economics of vehicle ownership. Modern vehicles are no longer mechanical systems with some electronics attached. They are software platforms that happen to move. The average car today contains more than 100 electronic control units. These units manage everything from engine timing to braking force distribution to climate settings. They communicate through internal networks. They rely on proprietary code, and they are designed from the beginning to be serviced within a controlled environment. This was not always the case. 30 years ago, a competent mechanic with a set of tools and a repair manual could diagnose and fix most problems on most vehicles. The knowledge required was transferable. The parts were standardized. The barriers to independent repair were low. That world has been systematically dismantled. The shift began with onboard diagnostics, which were introduced under the premise of emissions compliance. Manufacturers developed diagnostic software to read fault codes from vehicle computers. At first, this seemed like progress. It made troubleshooting faster. But it also created a gate. The software was proprietary, the scan tools were expensive, and the data required to interpret the codes was controlled by the manufacturer. Then came parts pairing. This is the practice of encoding components so that they will only function when authorized by the vehicle's central computer. A replacement headlight, for example, might be physically identical to the original. But without the correct software authentication, it will not work. The same applies to batteries, sensors, control modules, and even brake calipers in some cases. The part itself is not the issue. The permission to use it is. This creates a dependency loop. If a component fails, the replacement must come from an authorized source. And even if an independent shop sources the correct part, they often cannot install it without access to the manufacturer's diagnostic system. This is not a side effect, it is the architecture. The financial implications are significant. When a vehicle is sold, the margin is often thin. Manufacturers operate in a competitive market where pricing pressure is constant. A new car might generate a profit margin of 5 to 7%, sometimes less, but once that vehicle is in service, the economics change entirely. Repair margins are structurally higher. A replacement part that costs $30 to produce can be sold for $200. Labor rates at authorized service centers are premium, and because the customer has limited alternatives, price sensitivity is lower. The car is already purchased, it needs to be fixed. The leverage has shifted. Dealership service departments are among the most profitable divisions within the automotive retail structure. In many cases, they generate more profit than vehicle sales. This is not accidental. Manufacturers design their dealer networks with this in mind. The franchise agreements include service requirements. The training programs emphasize proprietary procedures. The parts distribution is centralized, and the financial incentives are aligned to keep repair work within the network. Spare parts revenue is particularly valuable because it is recurring. A vehicle sold today will require maintenance and repairs for 10 to 15 years. Over that period, the cumulative spend on parts and service can approach or exceed the original purchase price of the vehicle. This creates a long tail of revenue that is more predictable and more profitable than the initial sale. The complexity of modern vehicles amplifies this dynamic. As systems become more integrated, failures cascade. A software glitch can disable multiple functions. A sensor fault can trigger a chain of error codes. And because the systems are opaque to outsiders, diagnosis becomes expensive. The customer pays not just for the part, but for the access to the information required to identify the part. This is where the comparison to older vehicles becomes instructive. A car built in the 1980s could be understood through direct observation. A mechanic could see the linkage, trace the fluid path, measure the voltage. The diagnostic process was mechanical. It required skill, but not permission. Today, that same process requires software access, subscription fees, and encrypted communication protocols. The skill has not disappeared. It has been moved behind a paywall. The knowledge is still there, it is just no longer available to everyone. Independent repair shops have not disappeared, but their scope has narrowed. They can still handle basic maintenance, oil changes, brake pads, tires, but as vehicles age and the electronics begin to fail, the work shifts to the dealership. Not because independent shops lack competence, but because they lack access. The tools cost tens of thousands of dollars. The software subscriptions are prohibitively expensive for small operations, and the diagnostic databases are intentionally restricted. This creates a two-tier market. Simple jobs remain competitive, complex jobs do not. And as vehicles become more complex, the threshold for what counts as simple keeps rising. The result is a gradual erosion of independent repair capacity, not through competition, but through exclusion. The consumer impact is straightforward. Repairs cost more, options are fewer, and the total cost of ownership rises in ways that are not immediately visible at the point of sale. A buyer comparing sticker prices does not see the cost of a failed control module 5 years later. They do not account for the diagnostic fee structure. They do not factor in the parts pairing requirement. But those costs are real, and they are baked into the system. Insurance companies and fleet operators understand this. They track repair costs by make and model. They know which vehicles are expensive to maintain, and they price accordingly. But individual consumers often do not see the pattern until they are several years into ownership. By then, the decision is already made. Leasing arrangements obscure this even further. A 3-year lease term keeps the vehicle within the warranty period. Repairs are covered, service is included. The customer never sees the true maintenance cost. But when the lease ends, the vehicle enters the secondary market, and the costs become someone else's problem. The system is designed to separate the buyer from the consequence. There is also a data dimension. Every repair generates information: failure rates, part longevity, usage patterns. This data flows back to the manufacturer. It informs future design decisions. It identifies weak points, and it creates feedback loops that allow manufacturers to optimize not just for reliability, but for service revenue. If a component is engineered to last just beyond the warranty period, that is not a failure. It is a strategic outcome. The broader industrial logic is clear. Control over repair is control over the entire life cycle of the product. It extends the relationship with the customer. It creates recurring revenue, and it insulates the manufacturer from competition in the aftermarket. This is not unique to automotive. It is visible in agriculture, where tractors are similarly locked. It is present in consumer electronics, where devices are sealed and non-repairable. The pattern is consistent. Complexity enables control. Control enables margin. Right-to-repair movements have emerged in response, arguing that consumers should have access to the tools and information required to fix what they own. Some jurisdictions have passed legislation, but enforcement is uneven, and manufacturers have adapted by redefining what constitutes proprietary information. The legal frameworks struggle to keep pace with the technological architecture. What remains is a system where repair profitability is not a byproduct of vehicle complexity. It is the reason for it. The engineering choices that make cars difficult to service are not accidental. They are intentional. And the financial outcomes that result are not side effects. They are the objective. This does not mean that all manufacturers are identical in their approach. Some are more aggressive in parts pairing. Some offer better access to independent shops. But the structural incentives point in the same direction. As long as repair revenue is more profitable than vehicle sales, and as long as technology allows for tighter control, the trend will continue. The consumer is left with a choice that is not really a choice. They can pay for authorized service, or they can accept the limitations of independent repair. They can buy a simpler vehicle, but those are increasingly rare. They can extend ownership and absorb the rising maintenance costs, or they can lease and avoid the issue temporarily, but they cannot escape the system. What this reveals is that car repair is no longer a separate business. It is integrated into the design, the sales model, and the long-term economics of the automotive industry. The profit is not in fixing what breaks. The profit is in controlling what can be fixed and by whom. The car you drive is not just a product, it is a platform. And the repair shop is not just a service center, it is a controlled access point in a closed-loop system. The margin is built in, the dependency is engineered, and the profitability is structural. This is not a story about greed, it is a story about design. And in that design, repair is not an afterthought, it is the strategy.